Needs a Kleenex. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. So tonight we're going to be talking about finding balance after loss. Hello, hello. If you're just hopping on, welcome in. Tell me who you are, where you're from. Tonight we're going to be talking about finding balance after loss. So come on in, come on in. I just had a pen. Where did it go? Just lost my pen. Welcome, welcome. Oh, sorry. I was running around. It's always like this. Like my guide, some days, I tell you, all day, I'll be like, hey, what are we going to talk about tonight? Crickets. And then I'm like, okay, what are we going to be talking about tonight? Crickets. And then like right before I'm supposed to go live, or like an hour before, sometimes I don't even get an hour. She's like, oh yeah, this is what we're going to talk about. See that orb right there? Anyway, so yeah. So I'm like, I get my topic like not quite an hour before. Sorry, I'm trying to find what I did with my clicker. That's not the right one. I didn't light my sage, so I got to do that real quick here. And I didn't have time. I had to take my dog out, and anyway, so yeah. So I get my topic literally. I have a new clicker, and I don't know where it went. A new lighter. That's what I'm talking about when I say clicker. Sorry. Give me one sec. I'm trying to figure out what I did. I had it right here yesterday. Like, oh, there it is. I move stuff around. I gotta stop doing that, right? Because then I don't know where nothing's at. Sorry, guys. All right. So we're going to be talking about finding balance after loss, right? And what that looks like. I'm just going to light my sage here real quick. So if you're just hopping on, if you're coming in, welcome in. Tell me who you are, where you're from. Hello, hello. Trying to get my sage to light. Thank you for all the likes, guys. I do appreciate that. There it goes. There it goes. I gotta let my Palo Santo. Nikki from Pennsylvania, welcome. Cindy's from Pennsylvania too, Nikki. Maybe you guys are close to each other. So yeah, if you're just coming on, tell me who you are, where you're from, welcome in. Just have to light my stuff. I didn't get it lit. I'm rushing around trying to get the dog out because he decides at the last minute he wants to go out. So yeah, I'm running behind. Sorry. Okay. I'm from near Erie. Go Steelers. Yeah, they've always been my team. I just kind of stopped paying attention, but Steelers were always my team. It was a huge rivalry in my house when the Steelers were playing Green Bay that time. My son was a Green Bay, and yeah, it was crazy. Anyway, about 3 hours north of you. Okay, well, that explains it. All right, well, I tried. Anyway, so if you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. If you're not familiar, my name is Renee. Welcome. I'm just going to get started because I'm already running behind tonight. So first of all, we're going to be talking about finding balance after loss. So if you want to talk about that and what that looks like, hang out with us. All right, I have one gnat and he leaves me alone all day till that light comes on. But first, just real quick, like I said, my name is Renee. If you're new here, you're not familiar, I started my TikTok journey in March. And I apologize those that aren't new here that you have to hear this over and over and over again. Thank you for sharing the live, Jessica. I appreciate that. So those that are new, I started my TikTok in March of 2024. The reason why I started my TikTok is because in September of 2023, for TikTok purposes, my husband unalived himself. That's when I discovered that I had abilities to talk to my spirit guides, and they slowly breadcrumb me to my purpose, which is to help other people through loss and trauma. And so that's why I'm here. I only have 2 rules on my page. The first one is we talk absolutely no politics, just not at all what my page is about. A million other pages out there for that. And the second one is I just ask that you be kind. And if you can't be kind, hop off and keep scrolling. I always like to say I'm on my journey of life where I am, and you're on your journey of life where you are, and none of us are going to agree on everything. So we also agree to disagree here. Also, there might be times you'll hear me say, my page, my opinion. I'm not pushing my opinion on you. Take it or leave it. I don't care. Since my husband's passed, my philosophy is you do you, boo. As long as you're not hurting yourself, hurting somebody else, you do you. Okay? So, anyway. So that being said, so tonight we're going to hop right into it. We're talking about, like I said, finding balance after loss. And what does that look like? Let me get back to my page here. I was on the back because I just finished it. So finding balance after loss. This is a gradual, unpredictable process, right? There is no wrong or right way to grieve, okay? And I talk to people all the time, obviously, because that's what I do, right? I talk about loss and grief, and people all the time where, people tell them, oh, well, you're not grieving right, or you're too happy, or you're too sad, or you're too this, or you're too that. Well, guess what? None of that matters, right? So if you're going through a loss right now and you're hearing any of that, just block it all out, right? Go with my thing. My thing is what people say and think about me is none of my opinion. So just block it all out and you do your thing, right? I had the same issue after I lost my husband. I think people just think you're supposed to curl up in your bed and lay there for, I don't know, what's the proper time? Would somebody tell me what's the proper time frame, right? Are we talking 6 months, a year? What's it supposed to be, right? Even my own kids, had an issue with apparently I wasn't grieving the right way, right? Whatever the right way is. There again, the right way is what is comfortable for you. Now, obviously, that being said, I'm going to put this little caveat on that, right? If it's years and years and years and years later after you've had a loss and you're still what I call stuck, then that's a whole completely different story. So if you're, within a year or two of grief and, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about right now. So like I said, there is no wrong way or right way. It's your way, whatever you're comfortable with, right? And there's some caveats to that too. We'll talk about that tonight. So if you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. If you're not familiar, my name is Renee. Welcome. Tonight we're talking about finding balance after loss. So your timeline is completely your own, right? And one of the things that I finally said to my children is I said, look, because my son was the biggest one. He was like, well, Mom, you're moving forward so quickly. And it's like, okay, well, first of all, it's my life. Second of all, I'm 50 years old, right? I'm not in my 20s anymore, right? I figure I'm on the last half of my life. And so here's the thing. If I'm moving forward, it doesn't have anything to do with your dad, right? It doesn't mean that I didn't love him. It doesn't mean that I'm not still grieving. It just means that life is short, and I know that now more than ever, and I'm going to move forward at the speed that I'm comfortable with. Now, there again, does it mean that I'm still not grieving my husband? No, it didn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that I never loved him. It just means that I know life is short, and I'm going to move forward at whatever pace I want, right? So because I didn't lay in a bed for 6 months and, curl up in a ball and whatever, then apparently I didn't grieve properly. Nonsense. It's your timeline. So don't let anybody tell you different. I had somebody the other day telling me that somebody said, well, you look too happy. Are you sure you're grieving? And that wasn't to me, that was to someone else. And it's like, seriously, pardon my French, but who the hell are you to decide if somebody's too happy or not? If somebody's, happy is a good thing. Why is happy such a bad thing, right? I don't know. But here's the thing. If that person was crying all the time, they'd say, you're being way too sad. So, you can't win. Anyway, I digress. Sorry. All right. So your timeline is completely your own. Finding balance does not mean forgetting your loss, right? It means learning how to carry it while rebuilding your life. That's all it means, right? So if you're just hopping on with us, welcome in. Tell us who you are, where you're from. I hope I didn't miss any comments. My name is Renee, and tonight we're talking about finding balance after loss. And so, like I said, it means relearning how to carry it while rebuilding. Understanding the pendulum of grief, right? And I've talked about this before. It really is like a pendulum, right? And we talked a little bit about this last night, if you were on last night, it's back and forth, right? Or like I say, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. But it really is like a pendulum, right? One day we're over here and we're okay, and then the next day we swing over here and we're back into that, maybe that anger, that guilt, that sadness, whatever it is, right? And then we swing back and then we're okay again. And here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with that. That is absolutely normal and it is okay. Healthy grieving is not staying sad all the time or forcing yourself to be happy, right? And this is where we're talking about tonight, finding that balance between, after loss, because it really is a balance. It especially in the very beginning. Like I said, the first 2 years is crucial to finding that balance. And so that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. Instead, it is a natural pendulum of swinging between the two states, right, that we already talked about. The states of the process of grief and then sometimes being okay. The process of grief and sometimes being okay, right? It's a back and forth. It's a balance. And here's the thing. My husband's going to be gone 3 years next month on the 14th. And, I'm doing this, right? This has helped me tremendously with my grief, helping other people. When my guides first had me hop on and they're like, Renee, you're going to help other people with loss. And to be perfectly honest with you, I felt like such a fraud because in the very beginning, and I would tell my friend that, I would say, I feel like a fraud because I felt like I'm a hot mess. My life's a hot mess and I'm supposed to get on and help somebody else. But here's the thing is I was sharing my experiences and hopefully helping somebody else, but not only by sharing my experiences, was it helping somebody else, but it was helping me. And my guides knew that, right? My guides knew that the more I got on and talked about my experiences, right? I always say I'm the guinea pig here, right? If something that I'm talking about is either something that I'm going through right now, I've been through, right? And some of you that have been with me a little longer, know that there's days where it's like I'll go through something really flippin' heavy, right? And my guides will go, okay, now you're going to get on and you're going to talk about it, right? So like I always say, I'm the resident guinea pig, right? I don't escape any of this. I'm going through it right there with you, or I've been through it. So, but it definitely is a pendulum. Okay, so balance comes from allowing yourself to move freely between these two states, right? Like I said, it's a balance. Without feeling guilty when you take a break from the sadness. And that's the thing, right? I know for me, especially in the very, very beginning, if somebody made me laugh, I felt guilty. Well, should I feel guilty for laughing? I'm still living. And here's the thing is our crossed over loved ones, I'm a psychic medium if you don't know, they tell me all the time, they don't want us to be sad, right? The sadness is for us. It's because they're not here in the physical world. And Cindy, you are absolutely correct. It is totally healing. And there was a lot of nights, because I'm just a YouTube girl. I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, I turn on YouTube. And there was a lot of nights where it's like, I just need a break from this reality, right? The reality of I lost my entire world, everything, 32 years gone in the, blink of an eye, gone. And so sometimes I just needed a break from reality. And so I would turn on, comedy. I love, oh shoot, suddenly just flew out of my head. But there's one comedy, and it's pretty clean stuff. I can't remember what it's called now. Suddenly it just popped out of my head. But I turn on comedy and I would just sit for hours and just watch comedy and laugh because I just needed that break, right? And we do. We need a break, and I've talked about, there's a difference between stuffing your feelings and your grief under a rug and completely ignoring it versus just stepping away from it just briefly, long enough to give yourself a chance to just breathe, right? Just breathe for a few minutes. And sometimes we need that. I know even when my husband was sick in the hospital, he was there for 88 days. And I would come home and I loved the show. Now I'm going to forget that show too. What was it called? Not Yellowstone. There's another one. Anyway, there was a whole channel of it on regular. I could get it on my Pluto or whatever. And I would just sit and Heartland. And I would just sit and watch Heartland episode after episode after episode when my husband was in the hospital. But that was my escape, right? That was my escape from my reality, just briefly, right? Because I was living the Groundhog movie every day. I got up and did the same thing every day for like 70 days. So anyway, escaping it briefly, not shoving it under the rug. Know the difference. Steps to regain your footing. Build a micro routine, right? Build a small routine. Keep a few simple daily anchors, right? Wake up, eat, go to bed at the same time, stabilize your body. Now, if I'm being completely honest here, that didn't work for me. And I'm completely honest about this, and I don't recommend this. I didn't eat for almost 2 months, and then I was going to work, and I literally had no energy to go to work, right? Grieving is physically exhausting, and I had no energy to go to work, and I literally was to the point where it was like, okay, I have to find something that I can choke down to give me some energy so I could go to work, because I couldn't eat. When I'm the type of person, when I'm depressed, I just can't eat. I have no appetite. And so I started with pears, right? And it's funny because I was helping a gentleman in Canada the last couple months, he lost his wife and same thing. He's like, Renee, I just can't eat. And I said, okay, let's start small. Let's find something that you can stomach, right? And same thing. He could eat pears. And I'm like, you know what? Pears is a good start. Just find something, right? If that's you, just find something. And so I started with pears, and I don't remember what I end up going to next, but I just gradually started putting food back in my diet. And there again, I was finding small ways to escape, right? I was going to work was one. I mean, I would go to my job and people didn't even know, I would put on, that was the only time in my life that I really put on a mask. I would go to work and nobody knew. My husband took himself out and my entire world of 32 years crumbled, right? I would go to work. I worked in the hospitality field and I put a smile on every day and I did what I had to do to earn my paycheck while I was crumbling inside, sadly. So ideally, it's good to make sure you're eating, even if, eat little meals, little increments, because we've kind of been brainwashed in this world anyway. I've been down the rabbit hole of 3 meals a day was not exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So even if you can just break it down to just eat a little here and a little there and a little there, whatever, right? Whatever you can get yourself to do. Sleeping was another thing. It's like, right, you should sleep. I really need sleep. I have fibromyalgia, and if I don't stay on the same pattern, then my fibro can flare. And sadly though, when you've slept with somebody for 32 years, I'm still almost 3 years later not sleeping correctly. It's like I would sleep for an hour and be awake an hour, and sleep for 2 hours and be awake an hour. And my sleeping was all over the place. That first year to almost 2 years, I was running off a 2 to 5. And I'm one of those people that my entire life, if I didn't have 8, you didn't want to be around me. So I don't recommend that either. So try to find there again that balance with eating and sleeping, because it is very, very important. Like I said, grief is physically exhausting, right? So move, get out and move, right? For me, that's when I discovered I love to go to the gym, because my head would be muddled, with all of the things of, well, he didn't show me how to do that, and I don't know what that goes to, and all of these, my husband left me in a bunch of really complex situations that in a way weren't very complex at all, but in the beginning I thought they were, right? I was like, I had myself completely like overthinking everything. And then I realized, honestly, almost all of those complex situations that I thought he left me in kind of worked themselves out. So, it was like I had a bank account here and a bank account there, and car payments and camper payments and all of these things that, I thought were so complex, and oh my God, and how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? And honestly, over time, they just kind of all work themselves out. So if you're in the beginning stages of loss, or grief, just don't overthink, right? Little baby steps. There again, set up a little routine. And like I said, so get out and move. For me, going to the gym would help that muddle in my head, right? I could go walk on the treadmill, and walking on the treadmill for me, I don't know why. They say it releases endorphins or something. I don't know, above my pay grade, y'all. But I do know that helped the muddle in my head. So get out and move. I recommend we talk about nature, right? Nature was huge for me. It wasn't quite cold yet when I got back to South Dakota, and it was like towards the end of middle to the end of October. And so it was, fall, autumn time. And so I would go, we had a lake on the other side of town, and I would just go sit in nature, and I would cry, and I would journal, and I would cry, and I would journal, and I would walk, and I would look at the leaves and just really contemplate life, right? So get out and move. If you can get out in nature, even better, especially grounding. Grounding really helps, get your feet in the grass, dirt, sand, water, whatever it is. Grounding is really healing. And that helps with that tension and that stress, right? So if you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. If you're not familiar, my name is Renee. Welcome. And I forgot to say, guys, if you're new here, we're not shy here. So as long as TikTok's not hiding comments, please pipe in anytime. My channel is your channel, and this is about having a discussion here. So feel free to hop in, leave a discussion anytime. Okay, say no without guilt. And this is really hard, especially if you're a people pleaser. And I used to be a people pleaser. And then after I lost my husband, I had to figure out who was I, because I didn't even know who I was, right? Like I started popping out babies at 17 years old, and got married at 18, and had all my kids by the time I was 23. And so I really didn't even know who I was until after I lost my husband. And so that kind of helped the people pleasing tendencies. But there again, protect your limited energy, right? Say no without guilt, right? So feel worse now than when my mom passed. And there again, Nikki, like I said, it's a pendulum, right? You're gonna go from, I feel really, really crappy, worse than I did when she passed, to I have my good days, right? The trick is not unpacking and living there, right? Finding those moments of joy, because in the beginning, you have to find those moments of joy, and find things to be grateful for. For me, especially, I had all kinds of things to be grateful for. I still had a roof over my head. My daughter moved in with me because her life kind of fell apart. So I still had my kids. I had my bestie. My bestie was taking me dancing. I had things to be grateful for. I had a job, so I had some income coming in. I had my fur babies. You know what I mean? I had things to be grateful for. Sorry, guys. All of a sudden, my glasses are just bugging my ear tonight. So I had things to be grateful for, but at that moment, I couldn't see them, right? You're so clouded. You're in that grief fog where it is difficult. So even now, my kids call me, my son is classic because my son wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's very, very empathic. And so my son will call me and he's having a bad day. Excuse me. And I tell him, Jacob Aaron, hang up and write down 10 things you're grateful for. Because here's the thing. When you start turning towards gratitude and things that you're grateful for, then it like switches something in your brain, right? And so, like I said, in the beginning, it was hard for me. But even if I just wrote down one thing, like I'm grateful for my bestie, Jen, or I'm grateful for a roof over my head, right? And then every day that went by, then I would write a few more things and a few more things and a few more things. And I don't know, Nikki, what you're doing. Are you doing anything? Like for me, I deep dived into meditation and journaling. Journaling, I will swear till the day that I die, journaling is what saved me. Because, y'all, I was a hot mess. I was a hot mess. I was ready to check out. And I got to be careful what I say because I don't want them to kick me off. But I was a mess. And and if it wasn't for my youngest daughter, and she said to me one day, she said, Mom, your life is worth living, right? And that was my light bulb moment. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm a mess. And my husband didn't leave me in a great spot financially. So there was no going to therapy. I didn't have money for that. I barely had money to keep the roof over my head, right? And so therapy was out. I'm the circle that don't fit in the square. So, I wasn't going to go sit with a group of people. I just knew that wasn't going to work for me either. And so journaling was my saving grace. It was my saving grace. Like I said, I would go sit in nature and breathe in that fresh air, and one day it was, I'm angry with you. How could you leave me in a position like this? The next day it was, I'm sad. I don't know how I'm going to go on without you. Right. And so journaling was my saving grace. Right. And so I swear by it. Some people can't journal, and that's okay. Go take a hike, find a hobby, do something. You need an outlet. An outlet, there again, you're not shoving it under the rug, just an outlet, right? Like comedy is an outlet, but it's not shoving it under the rug, all the time. So say no without guilt, if people are tugging at you to go do things and you just physically know that you can't do those things, say no and don't feel guilty about it. Save the limited energy that you have, because in the very beginning stages, you do only have limited energy, right? So there again, decline any extra responsibilities, right? When my husband was sick and in the hospital, and I feel bad to this day, but I could not mentally do it, right? Like my oldest daughter and I would get into almost knockdown, drag out fights because I would go to my bedroom at night and I would put myself in my room and like I said, I would watch Heartland or comedy or whatever it was, because I had sat at the hospital for 8 to 9 hours a day, changing and rolling my husband and doing physical therapy with him. And my husband was hot all the time, y'all. I sat in that hospital room with a long sleeve shirt, a sweatshirt, and my winter coat on and a blanket over me. And I was still cold all day long. Now, if you all know anything about fibromyalgia, at least in my case, I have trouble regulating my heat, right? So when I get cold, I'm just cold. There ain't a lot I can do about it without taking a hot shower or a bath. I just can't regulate my heat right. And so I literally would sit 8, 9 hours a day just freezing to death, trying to help take care of my husband, suctioning his trach, doing whatever I needed to do. And so by the time I got home, my mental capacity was none. I just didn't have any. I was barely holding my own shit together. Pardon my French. I was barely holding my own shit together. And my daughter would come into my room and I know they were my kids. And I know, but here's the thing is she wanted me to take care of my grandkids and to help her. And I'm like, I can't physically do this. Like, she did not understand how mentally drained and physically drained that I was by the end of those days, right? I would come home and take a hot bath so I could warm up, put my jammies on, and escape to the television, to YouTube or wherever. So knowing yourself well enough, don't give out that limited energy that you have. Decline extra responsibilities. It's okay. It really is okay. Okay. Now we're going to pivot a little bit, knowing when to seek help. And we've talked about this before about, some of us like to isolate. I'm an isolator. In the very beginning, I really isolated. I know my family was extremely worried about me. At the time, I was still living in my camper before I went back to my apartment because it happened here in Iowa at my mom's. I would go in my camper and I would lock the door and I wouldn't let anybody in, right? And they were extremely worried about me. But that first 2 weeks, I just had to mentally wrap my mind around that my entire world of 32 years crumbled. My best friend of 32 years was gone. And now what? Like, WTF, right? And so sometimes we do just need to take a step back to ourselves and isolate. But there again, knowing yourself well enough to know when, okay, it's time I need to seek outside help, right? And what does that look like? That looks like if it paralyzes you, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, which was really me. I really probably should have had some outside help because I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I was isolating, and I was right there. I was right on the brink, right? If I was being honest. But there again, I didn't have money for therapy. But there are support groups out there. I'm just the weird girl, and I just didn't think that would work for me. So, but know yourself well enough when, if it comes down to your worthiness, right? You don't feel worthy because of this loss, or you have intense guilt, or even, I gotta be careful what I say, negative or bad thoughts, then there again, know yourself well enough to know, okay, it's time to seek professional help, right? Because when you're almost to that point, you're at the point of no return. It's you need outside help, right? Somebody to help you. So, let's see. I wrote something. I was just trying to figure out why I wrote it. Sorry. So grief, brain fog, right? We talked about that just a little bit. It's kind of that, that numbness of we just feel numb. Our brains won't think properly. Hi, Nuke. How are you? Welcome. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. My name is Renee. Welcome. If you're not familiar, that's my name. And I just totally, never mind. I have a headache coming, guys. But if you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. Let me start over, right? If you're not familiar, my name is Renee. Welcome. Tonight we're talking about finding balance after loss. I'll get it right eventually. Thanks for the likes, Jacqueline. Hey, I've been doing really good tonight. It must be that brain fog. I do get that brain fog actually with my fibro too. So can you imagine? I had like double brain fog, sadly. So it can manifest itself in physical pain, chest tightness, digestive issues, fatigue, right? All of these things. You can literally make yourself physically ill if you let it go to that, right? So know if you have that energy drain, right, that you're not lazy. You're not lazy, that you're going through grief and it's fatigue from grief, and give yourself some grace, right? That's the biggest thing with all of this. And I'll repeat it over and over and over again. Give yourself grace, you know, especially on those pendulums, right? I talked about this briefly last night. You know, I had a mental break on July 4th, and it started with my hair, because I hate being in Iowa and it's humid and my hair doesn't always cooperate. And it really wasn't about my hair, but my hair was the catalyst that threw me into my mental breakdown, right? And so all my mom's hearing is, "Oh my God, you're this distraught over your hair." And it's like, no, Mom, she didn't get it, right? And so that's where I had to call my bestie, because I knew my bestie would understand that it didn't have a damn thing to do with my hair. That was just the catalyst to my breakdown that day, right? That was one of my pendulum swings where, you know, it swung to this side, and he sent me a song and it threw me into a spiral. And that does happen, right? That does happen. Get there again, give yourself grace. And know, from Kentucky, I've experienced many challenges and I've been here a bit. Appreciate your insight. Oh, thank you. And thank you for returning. I appreciate it. I have seen you here several times. But that's the thing, is giving yourself grace. Like we talk about all the time, it's okay to have a moment. Just don't unpack and live there, right? It was okay for me to have my moment, and I did, right? I completely unpacked for about 10 minutes, called my bestie, had a complete mental breakdown, and then pulled my shit together. Pardon me, guys. That's my bad habit, guys. I don't smoke, I don't drink. Renee cusses sometimes, right? Pull my shit together and got dressed, finished my hair, took my mom to the parade, went to my cousin's, and had a great day, right? So it's a matter of, there again, it's okay to have our emotions, but it's not okay to let our emotions rule us, right? We control our emotions, not the other way around. And sadly, our world has taught us the opposite, where it's okay that, you know, you have a speed bump. That's what I call them, a speed bump in your day. You know, maybe you're on your way to work and you spill coffee all over yourself and you're frustrated, and, you know, and you let that episode of spilling coffee rule and run your whole day. Well, it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way, right? Those are temporary emotions, right? Temporarily, I'm really pissed off because I might have ruined my outfit, or temporary pissed off because I burned myself, you know, and maybe if you burned yourself, you know, it might go through the day a little bit, but you know what I'm saying, right? Those are what I call speed bumps in our day, and not letting those speed bumps control the entire day. Maybe the moment, maybe the hour, maybe even 2 hours, right? But after that, going, okay, get a grip, right? This happened this morning. My day goes on, right? And keep going. So maybe unpack and live there briefly, but don't unpack and live there for a long period of time, because that's when you're going to get yourself into trouble. Okay, where are we at? When your inner world is chaotic and your outer world needs to provide gentle structure, right? And so that's me. When I'm chaotic inside, that's when you give yourself grace on the outside and you find things, right? Sensory soothing would be one of them. Intentionally lowering the lights, right? My bed now has just permanently kind of became my sanctuary. That's where I go to escape. But I don't lay here and have those, you know, long periods of time moments. It's where I make it my sanctuary, right? I have my candles, you know, my light is dimmer. I make it a comfortable, soothing place for me to just kind of, okay, and to regroup, right? You need to have those places. You need to have a place where, you know, gentle provide gentle structure, sensory soothing, lower the lights, soft blankets. Maybe you have calming music. You know, I listen to a lot more meditation music now, right? If I feel myself getting anxious about things, I go to the gym or I turn on music, right? Just finding ways that if you're chaotic inside to soothe that, okay? Let's see. And sometimes, you know, for me, I was working my tail off just to keep a roof over my head. And so finding ways to soothe that tension and that stress after working my butt off all day is really important. So having a grief space, right? Having a place where you're allowed to go and just feel your feelings, right? Those heavy emotions. And for me, I didn't separate the soothing from the heavy emotions, right? I went to my room, and if I needed a good cry or a good scream or whatever, that was my room, right? So, but you can separate the two if you feel like you need to. But this helps your brain associate other areas of the house with rest or daily function, right? And so that's why it's probably a good idea to separate it, but for me it worked. So you do you, boo, whatever works for you. Journaling, like I said, journaling was huge for me. Journaling memories, right? If you're struggling with, you know, all of these thoughts and memories coming back, guys, this is the best time of year. I go to Walmart and 35 cents and I buy stacks of notebooks for 35 cents. All of my notes from my lives go in here. My journaling goes in here. I just finally started a new notebook for my readings, but up until the last month, all my readings went in here. And then when I'm done with the notebook, it all goes into a binder. And so I have binders since I've lost my husband, right? And all of my notes and all of my messages and my journaling, it all goes into a binder, and I have that. And I'm not saying you have to keep it. You can do whatever you want with it, right? Maybe you want to journal about your memories and then burn them. Hey, girl, you do, or boy, you do you, right? There again, whatever makes you happy and whatever helps you heal, you do you. Did y'all see that feather again? That's like the third feather I've gotten in the last, month? 2 months? Audit your role. And we talked about this briefly last night. Acknowledge losing your role or your identity. For me, my entire identity was gone. Other than I'm still my kids' mom. But, you know, the wife, I'm no longer the wife. I'm no longer, you know, that role of being a wife just disappeared. And the caregiver and all of these things, right? So audit that. And what does that look like? You know, and we talked about this last night briefly too, is keeping those values, those lessons, and those habits from the past that you absolutely want to retain, right? Like I keep the values of all of the hard things that I went through in my life with my husband and that book, because they made me who I was, right? Down to my core, really. But sometimes it's time to release habits and to release things that no longer fit that role, right? You're no longer in that role. So learn how to release those. Let go because they no longer serve you or fit your current energy level, right? Maybe you're busy volunteering somewhere. And at the time, maybe you need to take a step back from volunteering because your energy level just isn't there. And it's more important that you put more energy into yourself than maybe volunteering. Just an example, right? So I know for me, I used to do everything, right? I was the Sunday school teacher. I was head of evangelism at church, and I did Vacation Bible School, and I ran my kids here, and I ran my kids there, and I did it all. And I finally got to the point in my life where it was like, I was absolutely miserable, guys. And this is kind of irrelevant from loss, but not really, because maybe that's you now in loss. But figuring out, okay, I'm miserable. So why am I doing this? Am I supposed to be doing this because it's making me happy? And if it's not making you happy, then reevaluate, why am I doing this? And I just stopped. I just pulled back from everything. I just quit, right? And I tell you, I had to, because I was absolutely miserable. One of those last times, I was literally driving to church bawling because I did not want to go, right? It was a church event that I was putting on for evangelism, and, I was the head and I had to be there, right? But I was taking on all of these things as a role because I thought I had to, right? I was trying to perform a role that I thought would make me happy, and it did completely the opposite, right? So letting go. Letting go, like I said, of those habits, responsibilities. If you can't keep up with that energy level, then let it go. Add new routines, new hobbies, new boundaries, right? My husband and I really didn't do anything. My husband was a workaholic for a long time, and I never wanted to do anything alone. So I'm finding new things that I like to do without him, right? Like a month ago, I think it was, for the first time, I went to the movies by myself. Almost 52 years old, never been to a movie by myself. Never. Because the old Renee before my husband, if he was at work, I wouldn't have gone to a movie by myself. And so instead I sat home and was miserable, right? Sat home and was miserable because he never got home from work on time to go do anything. I should have just went, right? And so finding new hobbies, finding new things that I do without him, right? I never would have went on a hike by myself, or, just went and walked through the park, through the walking path by myself without my husband, and I find myself doing those things all the time. So finding new hobbies, new routines, and this is another one, and this applies to almost every topic we talk about also, is the boundaries, right? Renee didn't have any boundaries, but finding new boundaries with people. Maybe there again, you're over-giving, over-responsibility, finding boundaries for those things. You guys are awful quiet tonight. We just all listening to me, or is TikTok not letting me see comments? Just curious. Well, thank you for staying, those who have stayed. I appreciate you. If you guys could tap the screen a couple more times, though, if we could maybe get me up to 10,000 likes, that would be great. Those hearts really do help me. I appreciate it. So the takeaway from tonight is finding balance is not an all or nothing event, right? It happens in increments so small that sometimes you don't even realize or notice them at first. Listening and appreciating. Oh, thank you, Cindy. I appreciate you so much. So just know it's a pendulum, and there again, that finding that balance, it's not an all or nothing kind of thing, right? It's every day juggling that, finding that balance. So if you take nothing else away from tonight, just know to remember to give yourself grace, right? Remember you're doing the best you can. Love yourself, and if you don't know who you are, figure out who you are and love yourself. And it's okay to step away. Just don't unpack and live there. Really helped me by doing that. Good. I'm glad. I'm so glad, Jacqueline. So that's my takeaway for tonight. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add real quick while I'm waiting for comments? If you're not familiar, I have a YouTube channel under Scorpio Medium. If you go down into my bio, you'll see my link tree, and all of my links are there for my YouTube, my Insta, my Facebook. All of it's there. So that's where you can find me. I am here Sunday through Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. There again, guys, I am human. Sometimes I'm not here, and if I'm not, I apologize, but I try my very, very best to be consistent. Tomorrow night is Wednesday, which is our mini read nights. Everybody loves mini read nights. That's at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, if you didn't hear me. And so I do those like a group reading. It's so much easier that way because of how Spirit is. If you would like a one-on-one reading with me, go to my link tree and you can find my email. And right now, that's how I set it up. Today, guys, I spent 2 hours of my time this morning trying to set it up where people could just go to my link tree and schedule a reading. I was having some kinks with the payment part of it. But talking to my friend who is a computer guy, he was telling me it's on their end. So I'm going to keep working on that. So eventually you'll be able to just go right to my Linktree link and go right into my links in my Linktree and schedule a group reading, a one-on-one reading. So that's my goal, is to get that done or figured out somehow. But I am technologically challenged, so I'm working on it. There again, so I am starting to do group readings. So if you want to get a group of people together and have a group reading, I am doing those over Zoom, because I assume most people aren't in Iowa if you're smart. I better be careful. Sorry. Just my sad sense of humor. Sorry. But yeah, I am doing group readings over Zoom. So if you would like to get a group of people together and have a group reading, I am now offering those also. And if by chance, if you guys could just throw up some good vibes and prayers for me that Spirit will cooperate, I have another group event on Thursday night. So they just, Spirit is Spirit. So some prayers and good vibes would be good. And then last but not least, if you go to my link, you'll find where you can donate. I have a Venmo. So if you're able to donate to my channel and help me, that's always greatly appreciated, but never expected. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys tonight. Nobody else has anything else they want to say? Anybody have a loss or anything they need to share or talk about? Anybody? I don't know why these glasses are bugging me. Probably because I've been wearing them almost all day. And I thank you all for the hearts and the love. I appreciate you so much. No, sadly, I can't see the lottery numbers. It doesn't work like that. I know most people think, psychic, she knows. No, it doesn't work like that. So, yeah. Anybody else? Anything else? Going once? Going twice? Still hanging on? Well, if you need to talk about it, just let me know. Yeah, that is sad. I'm sorry, Jacqueline. All right, guys. Well, on that note, I hope y'all have a great night. Thank you for sharing a little tiny bit of your evening with me. I appreciate you so much. Like I said, without you, I wouldn't have a channel. Remember to make tomorrow great, because it is a choice. I'll be back tomorrow night from mini reads, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And until we meet again. And I have to wait because I got a message, so it won't let me click my thing. Have a great night, guys.